Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm Teri at Holding Your Space, and this is Reverend Rick, the Rev.
Good to be here, everyone. I am from Kempie's Corner, and I am looking forward to this conversation because I know our nation needs it.
Right? It really does. It really does. Um, we've got a lot going on the planet right now, and we talked about this. We were just discussing this backstage that it seems like it was Monday or Sunday, the previous Sunday, we were talking about what we were going to talking about what we were going to talk about. And I kind of was like, this could go either way. Let's go ahead and talk about social discourse. So, anyway, so here we are. So I'll just say hi to a few people. We've got Shenanigans here and Mary Starshine so far. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm sure more people are coming in, but I know there's a lot of people out there. So thank you all for being here today. It turns out 1 o'clock is going to be kind of popular. So that's cool. So if you're watching this later, Reverend Rick has Kempie's Corner on Facebook, which is very active. You've got a lot of followers there, and you're very active in your community as well as a metaphysical minister.
Yeah, and having worked all three river valleys and beyond, the reach goes into Slippery Rock, which is sort of like a place that has been a gateway to the northwestern and central regions of Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of reach with personal connections. I'm not one of those folks that have, if you look at my friends list on Facebook, I've actually spoken with that many people at times. They are not people that are just Facebook friends,
Wow.
And I've had long, enduring conversations with them, and talking and holding people with respect as I do. We frequently have conversations about how important it is to know how to do that in peace.
Yeah. Which is something that I feel like is really important for all of us, no matter which way the election would have gone. And we're really not taught that by society. That's like a construct of listening to people.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taught. And then speaking to people, being polite. It seems like sarcasm is such a deep part of our vocabulary in society. Even on the TV, everywhere, the sarcasm is so big, and I think that kind of hurts your heart a little bit.
It certainly doesn't let you feel heard.
Right? Yeah.
It's dismissive, in all honesty. And one of the things I was just thinking about was how we are taught, trained, and inculcated into this space where, after I get to a certain age, I will just then learn a few things, get it rooted into a field of work, and I will be telling people what is going on. And it's this expressive thing. It's how do you express yourself? But it doesn't include how do you go ahead and express hospitality that you are listening to others? How do we listen to our clients, our family, our people that are confused when they're in conversation? And are we even connected to understand what are the priorities people have with their lives? I think there's a whole lot of people that on both sides of the aisle politically, not just in politics, but citizens who are affected by politics, who don't really look at what prioritizes perspective in other people's opinions. And that creates a lot of need for us to really come together and just have a cuppa and chat.
Right. And I love that you say that. I looked up a few different places on social discourse, and I was, of course, brought to Pima Chodron, whom I
Okay,
love.
great.
Yeah, and then also the White House has something up about social discourse, which I thought, well, how interesting is that? That would have popped up right now. And I'm not a political channel, but that's okay. Um, so listening to everybody, yeah, Garnet's talking about being disenfranchised, definitely, and also our family. Since we're not brought up as children to listen, to be listened to, oftentimes the turnabout of that is not hearing our kids properly.
Exactly.
And yeah, and it starts at home, doesn't it?
It really does. And children get different mixed messages because they are listening to so many adults, and they don't necessarily, they may hear us take a moment and say, if you got something to say, I'll listen. But what are our actions doing? How are we giving them space so that they can warmly open up? How are citizens doing that?
Yeah, right.
How are friends doing it? Because we have so many friends who don't think like us in every way. That's troublesome.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so often, and I know I'm guilty of this as a mom and a sister and a whatever, an aunt, of wanting to give advice. And because you're an empath and you want to help somebody because you love them
Mm-hmm.
and you care about them. And so you might listen and think, well, I would do this or I would do that, or there so and so has this book, you might read it. And really sometimes when they're speaking to us, they figure it out. Like they hear themselves speaking and they get it, don't they?
Right.
Um, I don't know about you, but I don't how many times I've done that, I don't know.
It's really easy to not to take training for active listening and then not put it on your front burner. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, I know how to listen. I've got the paperwork that says I've been trained and I can do it. But do we?
Yeah. Yeah. You have the certificate on your wall, but
Right.
not in your heart.
It's all the way up here embedded, but has it gotten into the heart so that it can proceed from the mouth? Yeah, that's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say the energy feels a lot different um, after this election than it did in 2016. It doesn't feel as polarizing,
Thank the Lord for small favors
right?
because
Eh,
it's big, really.
Yeah. And that was a lot of that I think was media that came in
Mm-hmm.
and really created a lot of that. And it created it in my family, my cousins,
Mm-hmm.
who I had no idea. So many of them were Republicans
Mm-hmm.
and right wing, as it turned out, for a little while anyway. Didn't last, but um, so it was something that I really had to look at. And I didn't look at it with compassion. I had no compassion. I did not have kindness in my heart. I had reaction in my heart. And and I think that if we think about things with kindness and well, how do you do it? First off, let's go to you, Reverend Rick, because you've got this is what you do. You listen to people.
Sure.
Mm,
So, um, my first go-to is when somebody's got large expressive energy. I'm recognizing they really want to be heard. So, if there is this push for them, my first thought is, oh, I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to take it as an attack on me. I'm going to go ahead and empathize and recognize these people in front of me that I care about. Our lives are intertwined. I can do something right now and hear them. Even if in a few minutes later, I have to say, hold on, are we each hearing what other people are saying? Because what's gotten them so upset is they weren't hearing in a receptive way. The block of defensiveness really needs to be understood. We have to understand our prejudices, and we have to understand that other people have prejudices, and we have go-to responses. So that's why I try and first just look at, wow, somebody's in pain. I'm going to go ahead and deal with that first. And I'm going to hold space, because at the moment they're not able to hold it. They don't have the container. Their emotions are overflowing their container. One of my lessons from my tarot is this illustration of temperance that shows all these spirit beings with containers, and they're pouring fluids back and forth, trying to hold it all. And it just makes me realize that's where people end up getting led into addiction. They can't hold, their emotions are too large to be held in the containers they have. So essentially, I think what I'm doing is trying to help people find space to expand their container. How can you openly receive what someone else has without lashing out? Because if you're lashing out, you're splashing everywhere with your emotional baggage.
Yeah. And so basically thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see that a lot now when I'm doing readings, and especially, fast readings online here when we do them on the channel. We get in a box, and it's so easily done. And sometimes we're in 4 boxes, and sometimes we're in 1 box. But and sometimes the box has a bow on it, and it's a gift. So there's all different kinds of boxes, right, that we can put
Right.
ourselves in, and it's up to us to decide what kind of box we want. Or maybe we're too big for the box and we need orbs instead, which is a whole nother ball game.
Well, I'm a big fan of box cutters.
Oh, I like that.
I don't like living in a box. I don't like being put in a box. I would rather flow more.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, give them breathing space. Love that, Garnet, and treat them holistically. Yeah. Sal says, I haven't spoken with many people about the election. I did touch base with an ex-student who is looking into moving to Scotland. They're trans. Yeah.
Hopefully that is a move that they're considering and will find they're doing, because not that they're running away, but they're running to their best life, not away from pain. Because wherever you go, there you are, and you've brought your baggage with you, and it will show itself in the way you interact with your environment. And that's why we need peace on our planet, and it begins within us as individuals. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but the monks of the God and Charts Monastery have gotten in touch with me. For years, they were connecting with other people, and when the people who were doing the tours changed over which monks were involved, my name was handed off, and they've been getting in touch with me to plan their local area here, what they're doing in July of 25. And I said, you know what, this country's really in need. Could we possibly have you focusing on how do people find framework for experiencing internal peace? Because that's where we need to start.
Yeah. It's okay. So as a and I'll ask you this because you're into this and you work both sides of it. As a intuitive and manifesting my peace, manifesting what I want to see and walking into that. And then as a person, an entity living on the planet Earth, and the community vibration, what's going on in the community. So how do we balance that? Because a lot of people here are sensitives and empaths.
Right.
And so they might feel it more than the general public.
Well, I'm not a Tibetan monk. So let's start there and recognize that we are all going to have to work on ourselves. And that's where I like to guide people to start. Your internal process. I'm a big advocate of meditation and being intentional with your priorities, knowing who you are, and choosing how you're going to unfold things when you're going to have conversations. You know you're going to have conversation most of the time. It's usually not hitting you out of the blue. So, yeah, I would definitely look at the challenges before you have the conversation. When we go to write a paper to deal with the topic, we try to look at our prejudices so that we're not missing glaring important parts of a discussion. That's important in anything. We can't just leave it to academic work. We have to realize we must know who we are at our weakest points. What's going to trigger us? We can't stop someone else from being triggered. But instead of reacting with defensiveness and anger, we can respond by understanding that this person is lashing out because they need comforted. It's not anything you can do without really keeping a selfless mindset. You have to be mindful of others at all times. That's definitely a practice. That is more involved with personal development than anything there is. There's a lot of things we can do to go ahead and be more peaceful people. One of the things that I did years ago was try to remove cussing from my teenage regularity of communication. And I really stepped into wanting to understand why we do that. What leads us to that response? And it was anger that came up in my mind. And anger can be chosen how we express it. And my thoughts were, all right, instead of using a singular word or tirade of epithets, I'm going to go ahead and release the emotional pressure valve by tapping in and looking inside. Why am I upset? And when I find that the person in front of me that I want to cuss towards, I would prefer to go ahead and actually give them something to work with. Maybe it's not going to be the best polished response, but at least if they know what's upset me, they might realize, I might have had something to do with what you're feeling. Sorry about that. My bad. It's not going to be that quick. Trust me.
Yeah.
They don't usually respond that quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes a
I
while.
like that. I like that to think about how you're feeling. I often say for me, I get my feelings hurt easily if somebody is fairly aggressive. And I always say I can think of a comeback 24 hours later, whether it be a sensitive and loving approach or something sarcastic too. So
Sure.
it's like
And
I can,
I think you're probably going to find that you can come up with that response 10 minutes down the road after you've left.
yeah.
I don't think you need 24 hours.
No, you don't. You don't. Yeah. Yeah. But it evolves, doesn't it? Okay. Mary says cuss words are punctuation, I guess, used sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have found that I use less and less. And every once in a while I'll throw in an F bomb or something. I'm like, boy, that really sounded weird coming out of your mouth. I don't think that works anymore. Kind of looking at it. But and and then also just like sometimes when you're meditating or laying down even, you'll get those little shakes and you'll have to release some energy out of your body. Like your arm might go like this or your hips
Mm-hmm.
might go like that. And sometimes those words might fly out like that,
Mm-hmm.
which are kind of interesting for me. But yeah, and I'm like, wow, I guess I needed to release that thing. So compassion for other people and what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge piece.
It is. One of the comments says, I never swore until I was in the army.
Sally.
Yeah. Sally brings up an incredible point. When you're in a system where everything is established and there's not an appearance of room for somebody to take care of a new situation, a problem that has not been considered amongst those people who are structuring things, there has to be some shift. And that's really not easy for an individual who's become a part of a system that is larger than themselves. We must hold space for ourselves as well. So that brings that need for self-care as well. You cannot continue to be oh so pleasant to everyone that comes in front of you if you're not also pleasant with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Compassion with ourselves is huge. I think a lot of times when we're working with the throat chakra, if I'm doing a reading on somebody or Reiki, a lot of times it's not so much what we say to others, but what we say to ourselves when I see a blockage there
Mm-hmm.
in that area. And having clarity. And it is interesting, clarity, right? Like, where do we find clarity with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the chakras in the throat. Um, I don't think a lot of people realize that current discussions seem, I don't know if they are perhaps responsively geared towards our culture and what we are needing, but it seems like not a lot of modern thinking and discussion recognizes that the will is located in the throat chakra.
Oh, I didn't either. I would have thought the solar plexus. I love that. Thank
No,
you.
because it is through your voice that you will assert your will. You will frame it, shape it, move within the confines of the words you've set up. Your word is your bond, so you're going to start to do things in accordance with what you have spoken. And when our will is not being heard, we are being invalidated. If our
Wow.
that
Okay, can I just say, wait
yeah,
a minute?
yeah,
Invalidated. Major. And Mary's like, yes, Rick. Voices. Well, I agree. Yeah, it's like Okay. Yeah. Invalidated. I'm going to write that down. That's a big word. A big
A
meaning.
huge impact. Yeah. Big
Math.
meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, man.
No, it does not. I mean, it's not. It should be a space of harmony because it's vibratory. It vibrates. We feel vibration in our lips when they touch as we're speaking. We feel it in our throat. We feel this vibe.
Yeah.
And our words are vibing. They're vibing and coming into harmony with those things that are in the similar vibration. So the people who are vibing the same as you love to go ahead and communicate with you. Those that don't vibe the same have a hard time. Hopefully, they might have the discipline to try to hear you and shift off their internal dialogue, because internal dialogue is expressive. We need to become receptive. And that's another part of the throat chakra. There is, for every chakra, a masculine and feminine. Women tend to be great at utilizing the feminine energy of the throat, which is listening. And the expressive part is the yang of that chakra. So expressing what is within the mind and heart and soul is that masculine part. How do I recognize my own identity? Yes, thank you for mentioning the 4 agreements. Leah, that is something that I was thinking about probably 15 minutes ago, because we have to be authentic with our words.
Yeah. Well, so being receptive, and coming into the age of Aquarius and the age of the divine feminine, and then patriarchy that's gone bad, poorly, however you want to pronounce it. It's like hasn't been healthy for the divine masculine to be clear or to give information. I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
It is.
Yeah. And so how do we change that? How do we change that as a community and making that ripple effect?
So that's a beautiful concept that we could segue onto probably 15 hours or more of another podcast. I think we have to look at the roots of the wounds of the patriarchy. One of those roots was shutting women down for the entire time of the patriarchy. And that created a powder keg within the feminine that, in seeking to try and come into alignment with being heard, there are some things that, if you look at the earliest parts of the feminist political movement seeking rights, there was so much angst that I think you can find some toxicity they used from their expression. They weren't, because they'd been fed up.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming. I'm seeing.
Yeah. Suffragettes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, who can be surprised that they lost patience with men who weren't saying, guys, I don't know how you're raising your boys, but I want my daughters and my wives and my sisters and my mother treated with dignity and respect, and you got to go ahead and teach your boys something a little bit more actively. You know, that has to be uplifted differently.
Yeah. Oh, Sonia, I love that. Words or spells. Love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Everything has a vibration, doesn't it? And when you were talking about the throat chakra
Mm-hmm.
and how things come out and what that feels like and what it feels to say that, I just kept thinking about the vibration of that and what it feels like energetically. There, I don't know if there is something. I guess there are different chakras that promote that, but really, it does send out vibration and will,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it? Huge.
Yeah. It has. It's there is space where we have power with the solar plexus,
Yeah.
but yeah, and that's more towards our center, and it is utilized a lot in martial arts and holding your stance. Yeah, and our stance is not just our body. Our stance is also the power of how we interact in the world.
Our balance.
Mm-hmm.
Huge part of our balance.
Yeah.
It's funny, I just recognized that recently. Sometimes for years I've been kind of topsy-turvy, kind of tall. And it's like now I realize when I go places, I have to have a wide stance and I stand up even taller.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny thing, but our stance is huge.
Beautiful thought from Debbie. America, shadow work time. It really is an important time to start looking inward.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. Debbie says, I was hoping that the end of patriarchy would be more gentle. I expected the claws. I just wanted love to help them to understand. Oh, that's beautiful, honey. I love that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, some of the things that the young men are saying right now, I don't think they're saying that. I don't know. I'm not going to say why I think they're saying that or not saying that. I have no idea. Not a clue. But the other thing is curiosity, when we bring in curiosity and social
Mm-hmm.
discourse and actually are curious about what somebody has to say, it really changes the vibration, doesn't it?
It does. And also, the way we frame questions predicates the answers.
Oh,
That's how statistics are so fascinating. They say figures never lie, but liars always figure. Because when you're trying to misrepresent something, you can put the highlight on the answers to the questions you cherry pick. So there's been a lot of that has been done to further agendas.
oh yeah.
And not in a good way,
Yeah.
in a nefarious, agitating way.
Yeah.
You know.
So Janet says, I'm afraid it's mob mentality. Yeah.
Certainly is. And mobs tend to start to vibe with the spaces they're in. So if they are in and amongst people who are fear-based, they're going to be reactionary. So recognizing the spaces where we hold the same common ground, we have the same values, we want the same things, that's how we're going to discover how to vibe more in sync with people who don't think as easily the same way we do. I'm trying to remember the name of a gentleman from the 80s. I think it may have been Secretary of Education under Reagan, who wrote a book possibly referred to as the Book of Virtues.
Oh, I love that book.
Bill, I think was his first name.
Let me look it up.
So it may be listed as William.
Yeah.
His thoughts were, if you can imagine difficulty or tragedy or harm coming to someone you love, you can look at that action and see that it is wrong.
Yeah, William J. Bennett.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's how he described how they came to figure those things out. Bill Bennett, casually. Yeah. I think that's really important, because if we can recognize, oh, these things would hurt anyone, we should try to not engage in those ways of becoming and being and expressing ourselves. We need to go ahead and have ground rules. We should have fair fights. We really need to consider how we interact internally and come together with those ideas. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God. So I told you that I had picked up something, and it was from the United States, and it's United States courts setting ground rules, civil discourse, and difficult decisions. I'm sure this was partially written by him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's it's just like boom, 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 boom.
Even if not, it was informed by some soul in the same mindset.
Yeah, yeah, and there are people in office that are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that, and they're not all in the top frame, or they might not all be a senator or a rep, but they're there, and they're in the inner workings with the innocence of a child. Garnet says, yeah, he did not believe in public education, so Reagan appointed him. Liza says, wow,
that's incredible.
Yeah. I do feel like, what was the question again? Let me circle that back around.
The train has jumped the track. Hold on.
Right. My brain, I get pitter patter brain all the time.
I was asking you what your thoughts were.
Yeah.
As far as how we're going to have these things unfold with a set understanding of what are our priorities, how do we go ahead, and it was proceeding out of this idea that if I don't want it done to me, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I don't do it to you.
Yeah. I think we have to go to the fundamentals, don't we?
Golden rule.
Yeah. Who do we love? We love our families. We want to take care of our families.
And so do people that don't, in political thinking, align with our perspectives. They love their families.
Yeah.
We all love our families. A murderer can love their children. I'm not saying it's going to be in a healthy way, but they will love their children.
Yeah. Or their animals, or their friends.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Garnet says there's a slow train coming up around the bend. Yeah. Was that the Eagles, Garnet? I can't remember who that was, or Crosby Stills. I do feel like that social discourse does all step back to that. And I did have to step back to that with my family in 2016, my cousins. And we finally did agree that we all do love each other. And now it's funny. The last time we had a family reunion, the most MAGA of my cousins, her husband, wouldn't budge. He just sat right next to me and laughed and carried on. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. Oh, it's Bob Dylan. Thank you. Yeah. So, and it is all about finding what we love about each other. I think we weren't really set up. Like, I know the Russian people, the public there, are used to the media. and the media being not taken over, but kind of, false media, false things coming out. And as Americans, I don't think we were used to that. We thought, well, if they say it on TV or they say it in the paper or on the computer, then it's got to be true.
Right, because of libel and slander, protecting the public from false claims coming through the media. So we thought. But I think what we weren't ready for was media making the news by the way they express and highlight. It was different when we had people just reporting, but when they started giving opinions, that's where the slope got slippery.
Yeah. So how do we get back to the fundamentals with our neighbors or
Well, somebody mentioned the golden rules. They threw the S on there. And it is something that is ubiquitous in different philosophies. You find it in different forms, in different traditions. It sort of makes me think of there's that stone that was discovered in antiquity.
Oh, the
Rosetta Stone, thank you.
Rosetta Stone, yeah.
Where it just has the same thing written over and over in different languages. I think that's something we need to find ways to do. We need to find different ways to speak peace as a start. Because peace is the cornerstone of civility. If we're going to have civil discourse, we must first be civil. So there's the basics. We got to start with that. I remember one time one of my kids came to me and said something about how the other had done something to them. And I said, oh, wow. I can see you're really upset by that. I'm curious, though. What happened right before that? Do you think there may have been something that you were doing or expressing that gave a problem to your sibling? And it was very quickly realized we have to go ahead and pay attention to how we treat others, because we can be oblivious because we're stuck in our own ways, in our own desires. We have to make peace a real palpable thing with structure to it.
Yeah.
Garnet mentions the peace pipe, and it reminds me of something that was very powerful in my journey after my sister passed, and that was White Buffalo Calf Woman, because she's the one who brings the peace pipe that we eventually want to see shared among one another, that we will. The essence of what we speak or exhale, just as we would exhale the smoke from the peace pipe, we'll actually have the harmony coming out of it, of peace. So I think that it needs to be a vocabulary, it needs to be a mindset, it needs to be an internal discipline. There are many things that we can say about it. And it's not a limited experience. It is something that is a vibe that we have to be sitting in.
So, White Buffalo Calf Woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a ding, 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 ding. It's like there are so many stories of the white buffalo
Sure.
and how this is the change in time. And all of a sudden, this last trip I took into Colorado and Sedona,
Mm-hmm.
it was all about white buffalo turquoise. As everywhere I look, I see white buffalo turquoise down. I love turquoise, anything turquoise. My necklace has little beads of turquoise. It's Egyptian, but it has a little turquoise on it. And it's like, I'm just like, wow, okay. So that's the energy that's coming in, the peace spot.
Right. It's interesting that in 2008, when my sister passed, was the same year that Pluto made its ingress into Capricorn, that precipitated the financial crisis, the housing market burst, corporations crumbling, and structures of society falling because of their unhealthy foundations or neglected foundations. Because we have to go ahead and return to authenticity. And that's the years that there was the first international intertribal White Buffalo Messengers powwow.
Wow.
Yeah. She died in March, and then on her birthday weekend in June is when they had the powwow here in PA.
Wow. Diana Oil Painter says Wakang Glee,
Mm-hmm.
the black-eyed sacred buffalo born this year on June 4th, and naming ceremony was in August. Wow. Yeah. Sally brings up a really good comment. It's difficult when people want to harm you by simply existing. So, and I feel you, Sally, because in one respect, I want to be loving and compassionate with everyone, but in another respect, we need boundaries, right? How do we do that, Rick?
Ooh.
Can you just tell us?
There have been many people in need of that all the time. I happened to have an interchange this past June with someone who was just passing by, and I don't know what prompted it, but apparently we'd had a conversation. I had no recollection. This is the first time I'd ever met these folks. And it was something that prompted me to share the information about the book written about boundaries. It's called Boundaries. And it was written by very sound thinking, comprehensive clinicians, therapists. And it made such an impact on her life that as she was passing by where I was sitting in a courtyard with other practitioners, she said, "Hey, I've been reading that book you told me about, Boundaries. It has been fantastic." And she just loves all the references to scripture, the gentle, supportive, uplifting biblical wisdom, as opposed to verses that are being used to clobber people with their Bible, and it's really a big topic with therapists, helping people to understand how to hold their own space and step out of spaces that aren't comfortable. One quick thing, because we are limited on time, and you asked a beautiful question about how do we deal with boundaries. You recognize that when you are uncomfortable, if the discomfort cannot be changed, you leave. I would say to say something positive and then leave. This has been a lovely visit, but it's getting late. We have to get the kids in bed, or I have an early day tomorrow. Thank you for your hospitality, because some was given. That's what got you there. And I'm going to get home before it gets any later. However that comes out, eventually that gets done enough times. They're going to recognize this happened directly after I said, or this person said something hostile. When the hostility comes out, just the same way they say you don't reward negative attention, you don't give negative attention, you don't reward it, but you live your best life.
Wow.
Even if you have to go ahead and remove it from certain situations.
That makes a lot of sense. I know Dr. James Gordon talks about that too, and little tricks you can do to get out of a conversation, like drop your keys or drop something and pick it back up, or get a phone call that just vibrates magically in your hand. Oh, I gotta run.
Yeah.
I gotta take this.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Sal also asks, how do we help young people who are feeling hopeless? All they've known is this crazy political stuff, school mass shooter drills and climate crises.
A friend of mine has a daughter who has a Chinese exchange student, 14 years old, I want to say. And his parents back in China told him to be very careful because this is a crazy nation. And it's dangerous. And he's terrified of all the mass shooter drills that they have in schools. He just finds it totally problematic. So how do we help them feel with their feeling of hopelessness? Is a wonderful place to start. How do we go ahead and create a tone that would be hopeful? I think we have to supply a safe space. We have to hold space for them so they can, for anyone who can deal with issues. So we have to have responsible counselors available with the schools. We have to start helping our teachers recognize the importance of validating students and giving them words to express their own emotions. They need to understand. This is one of the reasons why English literature can be helpful. How do you think these characters felt? Drama clubs are helpful so that people can play with their emotions. They can tap into them. They can work with them. Drama teachers are incredible. Foreign language teachers are providing perspectives that are different because they're teaching about a different culture other than your own. Our nation could use a little bit of that. How do we value other cultures? How does this country value and appreciate and validate all the restoration done by the nation of Germany after World War II to go ahead and deprogram their children who had fallen victim to the Hitler Youth program, who left their adults, their parents, in fear that the children might turn them in if they did something wrong. How do we go ahead and restore that sense that we must be corporately accountable for what we permit? So if you want to go ahead and be pro-life, how about you be so pro that you take care of the people who are here, create a living wage, find space to make healthcare wellness as opposed to disease controlling, how about we actually take care of real problems? And then we can talk about believing that you're pro-life. Make it so that people don't feel the need to commit crime. That'll empty the prisons. It'll also create productive citizens. It also will give you voters, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially if you care about them and their lives.
Yeah. So
I unpacked a lot there, I'm sure.
That's a big one. Yeah. But a lot of beautiful ideas and ways to do this. Janet says, they say we are going to rebuild into smaller units. It reminds me of permaculture. And also everything is being dismantled. Yeah. Living in a global village. Everybody, I'm just saying some of the things that people are saying.
Yes.
Yeah. So do we have to wait for everything to crumble, or can we create this in our own families now?
Oh, we can absolutely start to deal with whatever comes in front of us first off. We cannot wait for crumbling.
Right? I feel like that's kind of that might have been a lot of people's initial reaction, and it certainly was mine. I certainly looked at Mexico and Canada or Mexico and Germany for about 5 seconds. So Wednesday morning, but it's like, yeah. So what's your idea on the first step forward, or second or third or fourth?
Let's start with peace in our own hearts and try to hold our peace so that it can be maintained in the face of chaos. Because whatever B, C, D on to Z and starting the alphabet over again steps we're going to take may have glitches. We're only going to be able to navigate if we are approaching through our own peace. What does has anybody familiarity with the song "Let There Be Peace and Let It on Earth and Let It Begin in Me"?
Yeah, I love that.
That is the space we have to start. When you see something that is falling short, instead of trying to go ahead and first change it corporately, look at it internally. How can I suggest to my family that we can do things to cope? You know, if you are concerned about the bullying in schools, make sure your friends know, tell your children, make sure your friends know where they can be safe, how they can speak up if something's a problem, who are the safe people, what situations are in place that are really helpful. And just start where you know, but start with your own peace.
Wow. Yeah, that throat chakra.
Will.
Yeah, huge.
And will is a key to manifesting.
Yeah, right. And this energy right now is huge for manifesting. Huge.
Yeah, and with Pluto being all about transformation going into Aquarius, let's hope that we can see the renewing of people's minds. Transformation that takes the ashes of failure, the end of misconceptions, and rebirth something holy and pure.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today again. It's really eye-opening.
I'm looking at comments and I'm seeing so many things where we could just fly with more to be said, you know?
Right? Yeah.
You've got some great people here interacting.
Oh yeah, they've been on the path a long time, and amazing tribe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, again, thank you. If anybody wants to reach Reverend Rick for readings or meetings or anything, or his
spiritual
Facebook,
guidance,
yeah, it's all in the description. So all his information is in the description of the channel. So, or this channel.
And if you are on Facebook, as was mentioned, Kempie's Corner, the banner for my page there is my business card, and you can even see my direct phone number. Just text me your name, because I won't believe you're anything other than a bot or a salesperson. I won't answer until you're in my phone.
Nice.
So.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for being here, and moderators. Thank you all. Lots and lots of love. And hopefully we'll see everybody tomorrow morning at meditation. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.